He walked into the studio lights like a ghost from a forgotten western, his squint deeper than ever, as if piercing through the facade of the set. Clint Eastwood, at 95, had agreed to this interview with Piers Morgan, his first in years. The host, ever the provocateur, grinned from his chair, promising a no-holds-barred chat. But as Clint settled into the leather seat, adjusting his hearing aid with a subtle flick, the air thickened. Little did he know, this wasn't just about films or politics. Morgan had dug up something old, something buried in the dust of Hollywood's golden age, a whisper from the past that could shatter the icon's stoic armor. The audience murmured behind the cameras, a mix of fans and skeptics, their phones glowing in the dim light. Clint's hands, veined and steady from decades of directing, gripped the armrests. He smelled the stale coffee from the green room, heard the faint hum of the overhead lights flickering like distant gunfire. Why was he here? Retirement had been kind of quiet mornings on his Carmel ranch, watching the Pacific waves crash against the rocks. But the call from his agent had been insistent. One last spotlight, Clint. Remind them you're still the man with no name. He nodded then, but now, under the glare, doubt crept in like shadows at dusk. Piers leaned forward, his British accent sharp as a knife. Clint, you've been a legend for over 70 years. From Rawhide to Unforgiven, you've defined toughness. But let's talk about the man behind the myth. You've always been private, famously so. Why now? Why open up? Clint chuckled, low and gravelly, like gravel under boots. Well, Piers, at my age, you start thinking about legacies. Not the films, but the footprints you leave. I've got 8 kids, grandkids scattered like buckshot. Figured it's time to set a few things straight. The backstory unfolded in snippets, as Piers probed gently at first. Clint spoke of his Depression-era childhood in Oakland, scraping by with odd jobs, lifeguard, logger, even a stint in the army during Korea. War changes a man, he said, his eyes distant. Teaches you silence is golden. The studio felt intimate, the scent of Piers' cologne mixing with the metallic tang of equipment. A producer in the shadows nodded approvingly, ratings were climbing already. But Clint's mind wandered to Dina, his ex-wife, and the messy divorce that had splashed across tabloids in the 90s. He pushed it away, no need to dredge that up. Then came the shift. Piers pulled out a tablet, his smile turning sly. Clint, you've spoken about your conservative views, your support for certain politicians. But let's go deeper. In 1958, early in your career, there was a rumor, whispers really, about an incident on the set of a TV Western. A young actress, barely 20, claimed harassment. It never made headlines, but archives don't lie. Care to address that? The audience gasped, a ripple of whispers like wind through sagebrush. Clint's jaw tightened, his squint narrowing to slits. He hadn't expected this. The conflict ignited, not just social, with Hollywood's #MeToo reckoning breathing down on legends like him, but deeply personal. Was this an ambush? His mind raced. That girl, what was her name? Mary? No, Marie. A bit part in a forgotten episode. They'd flirted, sure, everyone did back then. But harassment? He felt a knot in his gut, the weight of decades pressing down. I don't recall any such thing, Clint said evenly, his voice a low rumble. But inside, turmoil brewed. Damn it, why now? I've buried that era. Piers pressed on, quoting from an old studio memo he'd unearthed via some investigative hack. She said you cornered her in a trailer, made advances. The studio hushed it up, paid her off, some say. In today's world, that's a scandal. Clint shifted, the chair creaking under him. A secondary figure emerged, a young producer's assistant hovering by the monitors, her eyes wide with unease. She whispered to the director, but the show rolled on. In the audience, an older woman clutched her program, her face a mask of sympathy. She'd grown up idolizing him. Another, a millennial with a phone raised, smirked, ready to tweet the takedown. Tension built like a storm on the horizon. Piers circled, dropping breadcrumbs. You've directed films about redemption, like $1 Million Baby. Do you seek it yourself? Clint parried, everyone's got skeletons, Piers. But digging him up after 60 years? That's not journalism, That's grave robbing. The dialogue snapped, short and loaded. A pause, Clint sipped water, the glass trembling slightly in his grip. Is this what fame boils down to? One slip from the past erasing a lifetime? The wave rose, Piers revealed more. I've spoken to her daughter. Marie passed in 2010, but her family says she never forgot. They want an apology, Clint. On air. Right now. The screen behind them flashed a black and white photo of young Clint, smirking in chaps, beside a fresh-faced ingenue. The audience leaned in, breaths held. Clint's internal monologue churned, apologize for what? A misunderstanding? Or admit I was a product of my time, arrogant, entitled? But that would crack the facade. The tough guy doesn't bend. Doubt seated in the viewers' minds. Was Clint the victim of a witch hunt, an old man targeted by cancel culture? Or the perpetrator, his silence damning? A plot twist loomed. Clint leaned back, his voice dropping. All right, Piers. You want the truth? It wasn't harassment. It was an affair. Brief, consensual. But she was married unhappily. The studio covered it to protect her, not me. Gasps echoed. Piers' eyes widened, he hadn't known that detail. The antagonist shifted from Piers to the system itself, the old Hollywood machine that silenced women to preserve stars. But the revelation changed perceptions. Clint wasn't the villain, or was he? Marie's daughter, via a pre-recorded clip, appeared on screen. Mom said he promised the world, then ghosted her. Broke her heart. Sympathy swung like a pendulum. Clint's face flushed, a rare crack in the armor. The assistant producer stepped forward briefly, offering a tissue, but he waved her off. In the control room, the director hissed, "Keep rolling, this is gold." Napkin built, wave after wave. Clint countered, I was 28, green as grass. Thought I was invincible. But regret? Yeah, I've got plenty. Piers pushed, so, apologize. A beat of silence stretched, the studio's hum amplifying. Clint's breathing quickened, audible in the mics. Then, the emotional outburst, damn you, Piers. You dragged this up, paraded like a sideshow. What about her privacy? Mine? We're all human, flawed, fumbling through life. His voice cracked, fists clenching. The audience froze, a woman in the front row wiped a tear. Rising further, internal thoughts flooded Clint. Should I walk? Or face it? Piers softened unexpectedly, perhaps sensing the line crossed. Clint, this is about accountability. In your films, heroes own their mistakes. The conflict deepened, ethical now. Apologize and risk seeming weak? Deny and fuel the fire? Secondary characters amplified, a fan in the audience shouted, leave him alone. Security hushed him. Clint's son, Scott, watching from home, as we'd learn later, texted furiously. The climax crested at the 70-minute mark. Piers demanded, will you say it? For Marie's family. Time stopped, a moment of utter silence. No hum, no breaths, just the weight of expectation. Clint stared at the photo, eyes misting. Then, the twist deepened, I can't apologize for loving her, Piers. But for the pain? Yes. I'm sorry. To her family. Time doesn't erase hurt. The words hung, raw and unscripted. Piers nodded, caught off guard. The audience erupted in applause, mixed with boos, division raw. But the resolution lingered incomplete. The show wrapped awkwardly, Clint standing slowly, shaking Piers' hand with a grip like iron. Good TV, huh? He muttered. Off air, whispers spread, was it genuine? Or staged for ratings? Clint exited into the night, the caramel fog waiting back home. The producer high-fived Piers, but doubt not had they crossed into exploitation? In the quiet of his limo, Clint gazed out at the blurring city lights. We chase truth, but it bites back. Maybe that's the real drama, not the show, but the silence after. And as the credits rolled in viewers' minds, one question echoed, In an age of endless exposure, when does accountability become cruelty?